The ultra-left-wing BBC is in crisis. Now more than 30,000 have signed up to a Twitter campaign that teaches Brits how to legally stop paying the license fee the BBC depends on to survive. We're going to take a look at the latest petition, and we're going to see how it's but the tip of the iceberg of headaches for the BBC as their ratings are collapsing and the layoffs keep coming. You're not going to want to miss this. Greetings, everyone. Dr. Steve here with you. Great to be with you as always. I look forward to this time each and every day. If this is your first time here, I post 2 videos a day analyzing current events and analyze some super awesome conservative trends so you can live in the present in light of even better things to come. So if you haven't already done so, you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. It's going to be an absolute privilege to have you as a regular part of this channel as we together get to celebrate each and every day the collapse of left-wing globalism and the unstoppable rise of a new conservative age. So let's start with our video chat question of the day. Do you support defunding the BBC? Let us know in the comments section below. Do you support defunding the British Broadcasting Company? And let us know, or corporation, whatever it is. And let us know why. Give us a good sense, particularly our British viewers, of what they most particularly dislike about the BBC, because the BBC is certainly no friend to us, that's for sure. Before we dive in here, let's give a huge shout out to the sponsor of this video, and that's the makers of the beautiful Fighter Flare flashlight. One of the best things that you can invest in for your protection when the lights go out is this 6-in-1 beauty, which comes with a 3000 mAh solar powered recharging battery equipped with a high and low beam light that you can see from miles away. It has an emergency strobe light. It has a compass. It has a wire and rope cutter. It has an emergency glass breaker hammer and a high powered military grade magnet. It is absolutely astonishing. And best of all, as a Turley talker, you get 25% off the new 2020 model before they sell out. But supply is limited, so don't wait. Click on the link below and get your super awesome Fighter Flare flashlight today. All right, gang, let's dive right in here. We've had an amazing development just over the last 24 hours. It seems to be a bit of a British backlash against the hashtag defund the police movement here in the States. The Express is reporting a new campaign group called Defund the BBC has seen a huge wave of support over the last 24 hours, and literally just a matter of few hours since its birth. The group, which operates on Twitter, managed to get upwards of 25,000 followers just on their very first day. Now, the group wants to defund the BBC precisely because they see the news outlet as little more than a blatant left-wing propaganda machine, and they're right. One of the most recent outrageous examples of this propensity towards all things woke was the BBC announcing a new television series starring the new darling of left-wing environmentalists, none other than Greta, how dare you, Thunberg, right? I'm sure you're all familiar by now with the 17-year-old climate change activist who's become the new icon of the environmentalist movement, and thus a darling, a saint, a Mother Teresa for the fawning devotees of all things leftist, liberal, and neo-Marxist media, and particularly the BBC. Well, they've decided that you people in Britain, you haven't had enough of Greta. And so they're planning on giving her a starring role in an upcoming series. And as it turns out, it's having this inadvertent effect of increasing support to get rid of the license fee that all Brits have to pay. In Britain, in order for you to have television service, you have to pay a fee, part of which goes to funding the BBC. And if Twitter is any indicator, more and more Brits want out of paying this fee, especially in light of the BBC's incessant leftist liberalism, with St. Greta just being the latest insult. So the Express again report on the massive amount of tweets from angry Brits who do not want to support this nonsense anymore. And, you know, they have an advocate in Boris Johnson, the current prime minister. He's come out and said, you know, look, maybe at one time this made sense, but now you're all just a bunch of left-wing activists disguised as journalists. You know, you're a bunch of left-wing nuts. Everybody knows it. So why should conservative Brits be forced to pay for and finance your nonsense? So the upcoming negotiations with the government promise to be very, very difficult and disadvantageous for the BBC, precisely because Boris has such a massive political mandate given his landslide win back in December. So Boris can pretty much do whatever he wants at this point, and he definitely seems to have the license fee in his target range there. Regardless of what he does, with this latest Twitter campaign, we can see that tens of thousands of Brits have had enough with the BBC's left-wing cultural Marxist antics. The leader of the campaign to defund the BBC, it's a fellow by the name of James Usel. Even he was taken by surprise at the level of support his campaign has gotten in the last 24 hours. He writes, quote, "Life's interesting, isn't it? A week ago, I was watching Netflix at my parents' house in Ipswich without a care in the world. Today, I have woken up to 35,000 followers on an account I set up several hours ago and calls for me to be on radio shows, podcasts, and interviews in London." Now, his strategy is rather interesting. He's not waiting for Boris or the Conservatives to take this measure up in Parliament. Instead, what Usel is recommending is that Brits simply stop paying the license fee. And what he does is he shows them how to do it, how to stop paying without any hassle, free of charge, and completely legal. According to, I guess, there's a form you can fill out that will exempt you from paying the fees for 2 years. And once those 2 years are over, he recommends just filling out the form again. And the idea here is that if you get enough Brits to go through with this, they will have effectively defunded the BBC, at least the Conservatives, right? So it seems a very good campaign for sure. Now, in many respects, this is just the latest headache for the BBC. Just a couple of months back, it was announced that the BBC was laying off 450 employees from their news division, as well as scaling back a number of their flagship shows and services. And this is all part of a downscaling effort to save over £80 million by March 2022. And this is a response to the fact that the BBC has been seeing a massive decline in their viewership over the last several years. Data from Statista.com shows that BBC viewership in the UK has fallen dramatically from over 25 million in 2012 to 17 million today, which is a whopping 35% decline in the last 6 years. As for BBC One, they've begun to hemorrhage viewers from the coveted 16 to 34-year-old demographic, falling by almost 4% over the last 3 years. And it seems members of every race and ethnicity are turning off the BBC. Among minority viewers, they've dropped 5% in the course of 3 years, and 1% of white viewers during the same time period. And as you probably guessed, the median age of the BBC One viewer is rising from 56 years old a few years back to now 60. Channel 4 has experienced double-digit decline in ratings, right? So if you're not familiar, in Britain, and if I recall, it was 4. They have 4 public broadcasting companies, BBC One, BBC Two. Is it ITV, I think is the next, and then Channel 4. And you probably know Channel 4 because of the now infamous interview with Jordan Peterson that went viral, right? He was being interviewed by that snarky feminist transgender advocate, Kathy Newman. Do you remember? Do you remember? Kathy said, "Well, you're really saying, Newman," right? That was Channel 4. So their ratings are in the tank. They've been declining by double digits over the years as well. The BBC in many ways is just outdated. It's finding it just very difficult to compete with Netflix and Apple and Hulu and all these other streaming services that have access to extraordinarily detailed user data, so they know exactly what their audience wants. And so what we seem to be seeing here is that the BBC is more or less going online now. They're internetizing, right? It's not so much. Their efforts are becoming competitive. They're trying to become competitive in the world of social media, which of course means that the license fee is being rendered totally irrelevant and redundant. You see, what the BBC is realizing is the same thing that all network news outlets are realizing. The world has changed from a largely institutionally specific information system to now what's called a network society that spreads out information through seemingly endless options. I like to illustrate this with the post office and how the post office has largely been replaced with email. So here in the States, we actually refer to the post office as snail mail, right? So we still use it, maybe to ship packages and stuff, but we don't use it anywhere near like we used to. And this is because of the rise of email and Skype and text messaging, and all of which allows us to bypass the old bureaucratic delivery system. And it's the same thing that's going on here in terms of the media. Brits used to have to go through the BBC to get their information. But now with the advent of the network society, they can go quite literally anywhere, so that the BBC comes across as increasingly Jurassic and outdated. And this is what everyone is finding out. CNN is finding this out the hard way. I mean, the ratings for CNN simply could not be more catastrophic. But make no mistake, this latest defunding push on Twitter, as well as all the political ramifications, the license fee, the collapsing ratings, the consequent layoffs, this all collectively indicates, I think unambiguously, that the days of the dominance of mainstream media outlets like the BBC have indeed come to an end, which means that their influence over public opinion is largely over. Now, before you go, you will definitely want to check out my latest video I just uploaded on how the Democrats' push to defund and abolish the police is backfiring. And even Democratic pollsters are saying it will definitely cost them the election in November. You're not going to want to miss this. So make sure to click on the link, and I will see you over there. God bless.